Well, good morning, everyone. I'm very, very happy to be back here in beautiful Don Valley West to stand alongside Stephanie Bowman. Stephanie, I know, along with her team, have been working so hard over the last many months, engaged in conversations at doors right across this community. Conversations about what the hardworking families of Don Valley West are looking for, which is the same as what we're hearing across Ontario. People want real progress. They want to know that there's a government that's truly on their side, a government that will support them as they try to confront the affordability crisis, a government that will build up public health care and public education, a government that will actually protect our natural environment and confront the climate crisis. And Stephanie is someone who will be an extraordinary champion for Don Valley West at Queen's Park. Now today we're here to talk about public education. Now, so many in this province have heard me say this repeatedly. This is not an abstract conversation for me or for families here in Don Valley West. Again, families right across Ontario. My wife and I are raising two daughters. Our older daughter is in grade 9 and our younger daughter is in grade 5. They both attend publicly funded schools in our home community of Woodbridge. So what families have gone through over the past 2 years in particular, we felt that right in our own house. With our kids forced to learn through screens, class sizes skyrocketing out of control, with the fact that our schools are not in a state of good repair, the teachers and others who work on the front lines in education are beyond tired. They are burnt out. They are burnt out because of COVID, but they're also burnt out because they know right now Doug Ford is not a premier who values or respects the work that they do. This is not the Ontario that we believe in. This is not the Ontario that we are fighting for. We know, as Stephanie said just a second ago, there is a clear choice in this election campaign. On the one hand, the Ford Conservatives, who are so determined to keep pulling the people of this province down and pulling us backwards, so focused on being the puppets of the richest of the rich, puppets of their pollsters. Doug Ford in particular is someone who has demonstrated repeatedly he does not have the capacity to lead this province in areas like public education and public health care. Look at their last budget just before this election campaign began. After everything that our kids and our families have been through in public education, Doug Ford chose deliberately to cut $1.3 billion from public education. That's not right. That's not good enough. That's not what Ontario Liberals will deliver. We've said repeatedly, we will invest in publicly funded education. We're going to scrap Highway 413 once and for all. Once and for all. And we're going to take the $10 billion that Doug Ford wants to waste on that highway and invest it instead in making sure that our schools are modern and healthy, to make sure that they are fantastic, world-leading places for our kids to learn, to make sure that the air is safe to breathe and the water is safe to drink, that the windows actually open and close. This is something we're committed to. We're also committed to capping class sizes at 20, a hard cap for both elementary and secondary. We're talking about bringing back and will bring back an optional grade 13 for high school students. Yes, we can clap for that. That's a really good idea. For high school students in particular who need that time, need that chance to catch up, to catch their breath before they go on to whatever comes after high school for them. This is a real plan. It is a forward-looking and a caring and compassionate plan that's good for our society because public education is the great equalizer, but it's also good for Ontario's economy. It sets the next generation of workers and entrepreneurs up to be successful. Every $1 that's invested effectively in public education returns $1.30 back to our economy. This is a real plan, the Ontario Liberal plan, and a clear choice. Here in Don Valley West and right across Ontario, there is only one way to stop Doug Ford. And the only way to stop Doug Ford is to vote for the Ontario Liberals. In this case, for Stephanie Bowman. And before I close, I just want to address one other issue before I take questions. We understand that there will be legislation coming forward today from the federal government regarding guns. There has been one leader, one party throughout this campaign talking about the need to move aggressively and urgently to confront the escalating gun violence that we see on our streets and in too many neighborhoods. Ontario Liberals many weeks ago called for and will deliver on a handgun ban. And so we see or understand that federal legislation is coming today. I would urge my friends and the people in the media, Ask Doug Ford, challenge Doug Ford today. Ask him what his plans are when the federal government introduces this legislation. Will he fight it? Will he challenge it in the courts? Will he underfund it? Will he undermine it? I think if you ask those questions of Doug Ford, you will understand very clearly that there is another clear choice in this election campaign. If you want to fight gun violence, if you want guns, handguns and assault rifles off our streets, if you want neighborhoods and people who live in them right here in Don Valley West and elsewhere to be safe at all times, another clear choice. Ontario Liberals who will ban handguns. Ontario Liberals who will work with our federal and municipal partners to get this done and delivered in the right way. Or Doug Ford, who will stand idly by in the pockets and up close with the gun lobby, and who won't take the steps that are necessary in this regard in particular to protect the people of Ontario. Ask him a question on this today, and you will see again a clear choice. Dragged backwards, held down by Doug Ford, or moving forward with Ontario Liberals. The only way to stop Doug Ford is to vote for the Ontario Liberals. Thank you.
Okay, we have some reporters on site and reporters on the line. We'll take questions on site first. I would just ask that you line up behind the microphone and go ahead.
Hi, Stephen.
Morning.
So you say that Doug Ford is absolutely not fit to be the Premier of Ontario. Do you and Andrea Horwath despise each other so much that it would really be impossible to unite in making sure that the guy you say isn't fit to be Premier doesn't become Premier?
I don't despise Andrea Horwath, so I'm going to reject that part of your question. I'm prepared to work with any individual Ontarian to make sure that we are capping our class sizes at 20. To make sure that we are building up our publicly funded schools, to make sure that we are getting handguns off our streets and assault rifles, and to make sure that workers and small business owners are actually supported by a government at Queen's Park. I have been crystal clear on this issue, not just during this campaign, but for many, many months. I would be honored to work alongside any Ontarian who shares my passion for this kind of progress. There is one person I know who is not fit to lead Ontario, and his name is Doug Ford. And the only way to stop him on Thursday, June 2nd, is to vote Liberal.
So what makes it so impossible to even consider working alongside the NDP and the Liberals to defeat the Conservatives?
I'm not really sure what you're trying to get at. I just said a second ago very clearly, I'll work with anyone. I'll work with someone who has a membership in the Ontario New Democrats, anyone who works or has a membership in the Green Party, other Liberals, of course. I'll work with people who don't have membership cards in any party in this province. But there's one thing that is required, that they share that passion for progress, that they have values that support what's in our plan. There is one person who's demonstrated for 4 straight years every time that he's had a chance to make the right decision, he's gone the wrong way. His name is Doug Ford. He doesn't have the capacity to lead this province. He's not fit to lead this province. He is the wrong person for the job. And over the next, I think it's 4 days now, over the next 4 days, Ontario Liberals, including Stephanie Bowman here in Don Valley West, will work relentlessly to earn the trust of the people of this province, because we know Doug Ford needs to be stopped. And again, the best, in fact, the only way to stop Doug Ford is to vote Ontario Liberal. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Duca.
Morning.
It's Man Hamidi with the Canadian Press. On emission reductions, the NDP is proposing a new cap and trade system. Your government brought one before when your party was in government. Why have you decided that's not the way to move forward now?
Well, first of all, I think in about 4 weeks, the NDP has had 7 versions of their platform. They didn't put out costing when the platform was first released. They put it out many, many, many days later. I'm not actually certain at this point which of their costing documents is connected to which of their versions of their platform. It's that confusing. So I don't think there's anything credible in the plan that they put forward. And I don't think this is a point in Ontario's sort of evolution or journey where we can afford to take more risks. What I know is that Ontarians want to see a real plan to confront the climate crisis. If you look at the Ontario Liberal plan, Ontario will be net zero by 2050. We'll cut our greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030. We're going to do that by planting 800 million trees over the next 8 years, 5 new provincial parks, We're going to take the existing emissions performance standard. It exists right now. We're going to strengthen it just a bit on the biggest carbon polluters. Then we're going to take every single dollar we raise from that tougher emissions performance standard, reinvest that in those same industries to make sure they can transition to a clean, green future. We're going to take or reinstate an incentive to buy electric vehicles like the one that I've been driving for the last 5 years. We're going to give 100,000 households in Ontario a $3,000 grant so they can retrofit their homes and make sure that they are more climate resilient. So taken together, we have the most effective plan that will make it that much easier and will in fact hit our targets so that Ontario is net zero by 2050.
Okay, so on one of your promises to achieve that, how are you going to phase out natural gas plants while maintaining sufficient power supply?
Yeah, this is one of the one of the most urgent things that the new government in Ontario post June 2nd will have to grapple with, and that's because we've known now for many years that the Pickering nuclear facility is coming offline in 2025. The Ford Conservatives have known this as well. What they haven't put forward is any plan whatsoever to deal with the electricity generation needs Ontario will have. So imagine a world where our generating capacity is about to drop substantially, and in order to meet our greenhouse gas emissions reduction targets, we need more electricity. And the reason I believe Doug Ford has done that is partially because he's incompetent. He doesn't have a clue how to govern Ontario. But partially it's also because he's quite comfortable with a 400% increase in greenhouse gas emissions using gas plants to make up that increased demand that we're going to have. Ontario Liberals have said, and this is in our plan for sustainability, we are going to move with a conservation first process. We know that conservation efforts have also been cut over the past 4 years. So conservation, renewables, new technology like storage, there will be a significant component or requirement for nuclear. When you take this together, it is a comprehensive plan in our plan to be able to achieve what we need, but it has to start right away because we're already late in this province to this conversation because Doug Ford is incompetent. And again, the only way to stop Doug Ford is to vote Ontario Liberal.
Good morning.
Morning.
Oh my God, I'm blanking on my question. I asked you a couple weeks ago, how canvassing has been going in your riding, and you said you'd been out a couple times. Your wife
I was there yesterday.
Yeah. So explicitly, do you have a specific number for how many times you've been out in the riding so far?
I think I've been out for, I would say, about half a dozen times, give or take.
Okay.
But at this point, I couldn't even tell you what day it is right now. I think it's Monday, right? I think it's Monday. Okay, Stephanie tells me it's Monday, so it is Monday.
Unfortunately, yes. And kind of going back to what Emily was getting at, I know coalition especially and supply and confidence are kind of stigmatized words in Canadian politics.
Sure.
But in almost every other parliamentary democracy, these things are openly talked about in election campaigns. And so I'm just kind of wondering why, in your answer to Emily and previously throughout the campaign, why these words aren't mentioned and why you kind of seem hesitant to explicitly say that this is a possibility come June 3rd.
Well, I think my answer on this has been consistent for months. And so, look, first of all, I think it is so important for us to respect what voters are going to say on Thursday and respect what they're going to say here in this community, in my community, and elsewhere. And I think it's premature before voters have had the chance to look at all of their options for politicians to start talking about how we are going to divvy up power like this entire exercise is about us. Campaigning is not about us. Government's not supposed to be about us. It's supposed to be about the 15 million people who call this province home. When they're sitting in their living rooms tonight and they're talking about this election campaign, they're thinking about who is going to make a positive difference in their life, who's going to make it easier for them or their kids or grandkids to buy a home or to rent, who's going to make it easier for them to be able to afford food or take public transit, who's going to have a real plan, to the question of a moment ago, to confront the climate crisis. And that's what people are thinking about. It's those of us who are kind of stuck inside the political bubble who kind of have these conversations. And I think we see what happens on Thursday, and Ontario Liberals will never stop working to earn and keep the trust of the people of this province. We respect what the voters have to say on Thursday, and then we move forward. But the one thing I've also been crystal clear on for many months now is that we know there is one individual who is not competent to lead this province. And we know that because of how he's performed over the past 4 years, before COVID and during COVID. And his name is Doug Ford. Doug Ford needs to be stopped, and the only option to stop Doug Ford in Don Valley West and beyond is to vote Liberal.
Okay, we're going to move over to the line right now. Our first question is from Richard Southern from City News. Go ahead, Richard.
Mr. Del Duca, good morning. I wanted to get your take on the good morning on the early voting numbers. Elections Ontario says this morning that 9.9% of the electorate voted in the advanced polls. That's more than 4 years ago. However, the advanced polls were only open for 5 days 4 years ago, and if you do the double the number, it's actually down 26%. I'm wondering, as someone who's been around campaigns for a long time, how you're looking at these numbers this morning.
Now, look, the only numbers that I'm looking at are the 15 million people who live here in Ontario, who want to see a government that's actually on their side, will confront the climate crisis, the affordability crisis, will build up schools, will build up public health care. And that's what Ontario Liberals are very, very focused on. We have been from day one. We'll continue to be focused on that right up until 9 o'clock this Thursday and beyond, taking what we believe will be a strong mandate to deliver a progressive government for the people of Ontario. That's what we're going to remain exclusively focused on.
So the numbers show that 90% of prospective voters have yet to cast their ballot. Do you look at that as an opportunity, Stephen?
Well, look, I think all of life is an opportunity. And by the way, I haven't voted yet. I'll be voting this Thursday. My vote's not up for grabs. I know who I'm choosing. But look, all of this is an opportunity. This is why we have election campaigns, so we can have the conversation, so we can be at the doors the way that Stephanie and her team are. So that we can convince people, because it is so important to earn people's trust and then, by the way, keep their trust so that they know they have a premier and a government and a team that's on their side. And they will have that in Ontario Liberals.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks, Richard.
Queen's Park today. Go ahead, Alan.
Hi, Stephen. We saw that the CEO for Invest Windsor-Essex sort of came out and said that there's nothing wrong with the LG chemical plant and that this was a result of miscommunication, and that everything is fine with that project. What do you think of that?
So did I miss something? Has LG Chem said that they're going to go ahead with the $2.5 billion investment? I don't think they have. Everything that I've seen or heard says that potential investment, which should have come to Windsor-Essex, is a grave risk if it hasn't already been canceled outright. I think what we heard from Invest Windsor-Essex and others a number of weeks ago was right on the money. The fact that the current electricity system in Windsor-Essex can't provide 15 megawatts of power to bring 1,500 jobs to that community is absolutely appalling. But what's a lot worse, is that it was 3 years ago, when the Independent Electricity Systems Operator, ISO, wrote a report, published the report in 2019, that said the Windsor-Essex region actually had a challenge and would have a growing challenge with its electricity requirements. For 3 years, Doug Ford did nothing. He put up billboards, he tried to change our license plates, he fought with everybody in the public services, he did all kinds of things. For 3 straight years, did nothing about this issue. Here's what Doug Ford did right before an election started. He put out a press release, and he dished out a bunch of empty words about, we'll fix this problem, like as if he wasn't warned 3 years earlier. So what I know is that investment from LG Chem should be coming to Windsor-Essex. What I know is those 1,500 jobs should be here in Ontario. I know the hardworking families of that region deserve to have that opportunity. And I know that in the most appalling way imaginable, Doug Ford failed. Don't forget, he canceled 750 electricity or energy contracts in 2018, 1/3 of which were in southwestern Ontario. So taken together, this is just another crystal clear example of how Doug Ford is not up to the job. And as I've said before, there's only one way to stop Doug Ford this Thursday, June 2nd, and that is to vote Ontario Liberal.
Yeah.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you.
Sort of different topic. Your candidate, Shelley Brown, got his carjacked taken from him while out canvassing. It's another one of these these carjackings that we're seeing around the GTA. What do you think is going on here, and what is the best response from the province?
Well, first of all, I think it's absolutely appalling. We had another candidate who had their car stolen many weeks ago from their driveway. This is a shocking increase in all forms of violence, auto theft. A number of days ago, about a week and a half ago, I said an Ontario Liberal government would move urgently to create an auto theft task force. It's what the City of Toronto asked for last December, what Doug Ford has done nothing on. Of course, you heard me say weeks ago, and I said it again this morning, an Ontario Liberal government would move forward urgently to ban handguns in this province. We would partner with the federal government, which we expect will be introducing legislation today to deal with handguns, to deal with gun violence. I think it is such an important moment right here, this moment today, for members of the media to ask Doug Ford, what's his plan with this federal bill? Will he challenge it in the courts? We know that he's got a track record of spending millions of your dollars on lawyers to fight the federal government. Will he do it again? Will he underfund this? Will he undermine it? Will he do everything to remain nice and cozy with the gun lobby? Or will he actually stand up and protect people in York Centre, in Shelley Brown's case, here for Stephanie Bowman and Don Valley West, and across this province? Ontario Liberals have no hesitation on this issue. We want to work with the federal government. We want to work with municipalities like the City of Toronto, and we want the guns and the violence gone. We want the people of our province to feel safe and be protected at all times. Only Doug Ford seems to think this isn't a problem because we know who he's siding with. We know who he's cozied up to, the gun lobby, not Ontario Liberals. And again, there's one way to stop Doug Ford on Thursday, and that's to vote Liberal.
Okay, your next question is from Cynthia Mulligan from City News. Go ahead, Cynthia. Cynthia, I think you might be on mute.
There we go. So sorry about that.
That's
You'd think
okay.
I'd have this down by now.
Almost
Stephen,
there.
if you look at yeah, right. If you look at the polls, Doug Ford is consistently in the lead, like it or not. And I guess my question to you is, why has it been so hard to make life more difficult in this election campaign for Doug Ford? I mean, the polls have essentially not moved since it started. And you know, people were so angry at him through COVID. His first 2 years in government were pretty rough. You would think it would have been easy to give him a rougher time. Why isn't anyone, including yourself, able to make a dent in his popularity?
Well, you know, it doesn't feel that way to me. You know, when I was in Peterborough I think it was Saturday, this past Saturday, there were over 100 people in the campaign office for Greg Dempsey in Peterborough. I've been to Barrie, for example, a number of times, huge crowds. Pickering, Uxbridge, Scarborough yesterday. Every time I've come to Don Valley West, there is very clear and growing momentum with the new Ontario Liberal team. It's evident. We hear it at the doors. We understand it, but it's more than that. You know, what I noticed in particular the last couple of days is that as we come to the final few moments of this election campaign, people are really tuning in now. They really see fundamentally how stark the choice is. 4 more years of recklessness, cuts, and chaos from Doug Ford, or the new Ontario Liberal team with our plan to help their lives starting on day one. It is a crystal clear choice in this election campaign. The only way to stop Doug Ford is to vote Liberal. And you know, look, you've seen this. All of your colleagues have seen it. Doug Ford's team has got him, you know, nice and firmly kind of in that bubble. He doesn't want to talk to any of you. He doesn't want to talk to everyday Ontarians. You know, it's sort of living in that alternate universe. I have a prediction. Come this Thursday, here in Don Valley West and beyond, the people of this province are going to burst Doug Ford's bubble, and we're going to have a strong progressive government at Queen's Park.
Thank you.
Thanks,
and let's talk about your own riding.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hearing it's a squeaker, and you're the Liberal leader. Shouldn't you be way out ahead against your opponent? And what are you going to do? And I know you don't want to answer this question.
No, I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
What will you do if Tibolo takes your seat?
Well, first of all, I was out in Vaughan Woodbridge yesterday afternoon. I had the chance to visit a few of the community parks that we have. My daughters were with me. It was really exciting. First of all, the weather was great. People were out. They were having fun. Lots of young families. Had a lot of really great conversations. And I have a very strong sense of encouragement from the people that I had the chance to speak with just yesterday in my community. They know what's at stake in this election campaign. I will continue to work hard in Vaughan Woodbridge, just like I have in every riding across this province, just like all of our candidates are, like Stephanie, and all of the rest of our new Ontario Liberal team. And when the polls close on Thursday night, we're going to count the votes like we always do. And I feel very good about what's going to happen in Vaughan Woodbridge because people do understand what's at stake, and they do know that the best way to get something that will help them, a strong local MPP, a good champion for the community, is to vote Ontario Liberal. So, Cynthia, I'm just going to remain focused on that all the way through. Because that's part of my job as leader of the party, but it's also part of my job as someone who's running to earn the trust of my neighbors in Vaughan Woodbridge.
Okay, that was your last question. Back to you, Stephen.
Okay, thanks so much, Will. Appreciate it. So today we are here to talk about publicly funded education and how Doug Ford, with his cuts and his chaos and his havoc, will continue to do what he always does, what conservatives always do, which is to privatize, to underfund, to cut, so that their wealthiest friends can do better while the rest of Ontario suffers. I strongly urge everyone, if you want to stop Doug Ford, and most Ontarians do, choose the Liberal. Vote Ontario Liberal. It's true in education. It's also true when it comes to community safety. Today is a day in particular because the federal government, we understand, will be introducing gun control legislation. Today is a day. Don't let Doug Ford skate past this one. Ask a crystal clear question. With the gun violence that we see here in Ontario, with car thefts and carjacking skyrocketing out of control, today is the day to confront Doug Ford and ask him, will he fight the federal government in court? Will he stand up and work with Ontario Liberals to get guns off our streets? Or will he remain firmly up alongside the gun lobby, cozy with the gun lobby? So today is a day to ask Doug Ford that question. We know as well there is a clear choice. If you want guns off our streets, if you want your neighborhood to be safe, if you don't want the carjackings or the auto thefts, don't vote for anything else other than the Ontario Liberals to stop Doug Ford. Thanks very much.